back, welcome back, welcome back. We are back. And hope you had a good night, a good morning, a good week. Being that we're at the end of the week. And we're trying to finish up this week here best we can. Get through it. I don't know how the weather is by you. You know, it's a weird thing to think that everybody's existing out in the world and everybody has all this weather that they have to deal with, and that they're tracking like all this weather around the world, like for whose benefit? You know what I mean? Because right now we have a little drizzle. There's a little light rain. Nothing pouring down. We got overcast, and so it's not a bad day. You know, it is what it is. It's not a sunny, beautiful day, but that's fine. You know, sometimes it's just good to have, you know, weather that's copacetic and that you know, is holding up. It's not hurting anybody. You know what I mean? Like disastrous weather, nobody wants disastrous weather. You know what I mean? No one's looking for a hurricane or tornado to hit or some crazy, you know, flash floods that wash away, you know, the whole, you know, mud bank or something. You know what I mean? Like nobody wants that. Nobody wants bad weather. But as far as like just regular everyday weather, just, you know, a little bit of clouds here, a little bit of sun there. Little bit of, you know, light rain. Oh, there's a shower, there's some rain, there's some heavier rain activity, but that area needs it. You know what I mean? Like if I was the weatherman, I think I would be pretty good at saying the weather. I don't think I'd focus like on all the negative. Like,
transfer complete.
If there was like an area that was getting hit, you know, bad, I mean, like I wouldn't sit there and dwell on it like it's like, you know what I mean? Because so many years of having to, you know, listen to the weather, like after a while you're just like, you know, weather is weather. And I'm not saying for people that get hit in areas with like, you know, weather that's severe, that it's like, you know, I don't think there's like any place on the planet like Star Trek. Okay, so in Star Trek, the Ferengi, they live on a planet that it rains all the time. That's all it does, is it rains. Right? Ferenginar is the name of the planet. And so it rains, and it's just natural. That's what their planet is like. You know, it's like Dagobah. You go to Dagobah, and Dagobah is like I don't know if the whole planet is like a swamp or is like all kind of, you know, remote areas that are just like real swampy, right? It's still livable because Yoda lived there, right? But it's one of those places that's like, it's not like a place that you'd go and visit. And I guess they never built up any type of industry there. You know what I mean? I guess they didn't make anything on the planet. They were just kind of like, that's a swamp planet. You know what I mean? And they just live in a swamp down there. You know what I mean? Like, that's the interesting thing about Star Wars, is that in Star Wars, everyone just kind of accepts the way that a place is. And then depending on what their connection is to power, that's what determines whether or not they're part of the Empire. You know what I mean? Like, what is it that they produce, or what is it that the planet has that everybody else needs, or whatever? You know what I mean? It's not necessarily like in Star Trek, it's all about like leaving planets alone. Don't go near that planet. They're not advanced enough. You know, don't mess with their history. Don't mess with their timeline or what have you. Like when they're ready to travel into space, then we'll get in contact with them, and we'll make them part of our federation, or we'll offer them the opportunity to become, you know, space partners or something. And so it's like all this type of stuff with the weather. You know what I mean? Like, this doom and gloom, and like, you never hear Star Trek. Like, Star Trek doesn't talk about, weather, like, oh, that, these planets are off limits, and the civilizations that are there because of their weather, although they did have some like transforming. I think in some of the movies they did that type of stuff, where they were like doing, there's scientists that were like experimenting on planets, and they were doing like geo-terrain weather changes or something like that, like they put like a weather satellite or something, in the orbit that like controls the weather. I think they did that with Voyager, I think, where Trish and Neelix, I think they, like, the planet that they were on, they had like a harsh, it was harsh, but it wasn't raining. It was like a sandy planet. Like the first episodes, they kind of go into that, where it's like it's inhospitable, or it's not very comfortable. Like on the top surface, it's all like sand and sun, and like that's all there basically is. Like to find water, whatever, is difficult, So, but I mean, is the planet that bad? Is planet Earth that bad? Where it's like constantly being hit, like in areas that it's like, over and over, and then these areas, right? Because they usually, what happens is they wind up building these hotels and these resorts and all of these kind of vacation spots in these areas where like there's earthquakes, where there's like severe weather, you know what I mean? And like people just, they still go there, and it's supposedly cheaper to go there, right? That's one of the reasons why. Like everyone says like the economy in Florida is like so great, like, oh, their economy is so great down in Florida. Like they survived the pandemic and they didn't have to close their economy and this and this and that. Meanwhile, it's like a natural disaster place. Like every other year, or at least, for the past several decades that I've been around, there's always some evacuation. There's always some, threat of like having to shut down, or having to rebuild because there was a hurricane that came through the Gulf, or that came from, the Atlantic, and yet it's like Florida's made out to be, it's the sunshine state, I believe, and that it's like all great to live there. And I guess what they're thinking about is like when it's just happy, when there's nothing going on or there's nothing wrong, that it's a great place to live, Florida. And a lot of people I heard, like between elections, between this year, like so many people were like, where are we gonna go? Where are we gonna go? Where are we gonna move to? We gotta move. We're like, we gotta move. Like, where are we gonna move to? You know what I mean? And then like everybody like was saying like Florida, like go to Florida. Like Florida is like the best state like in the country. It's the best state in the union. You know what I mean? And I'm like, Florida? I'm like, I don't know, dude. Florida, like you have to get used to Florida. Like there's no place, there's no state that you could go to where you're just gonna feel like comfortable, and you're just gonna be like, oh man, this state is just like perfect. You know what I mean? Like every state has some issue going on with it. It doesn't matter where you go in the 50 states. There's always gonna be something about that state that has some type of issue or has some type of problem. It just does. And so, outside of the economics of it all, and you would think that, economics, like just get the right people in place. Put the right people in place, people that know how to lead, they know how to build things up, they know how to set things up to make it stable, to make it so that it's possible for people to live there, and not just, for a few years, but that there's generational wealth, there's generational families. So that's a big thing. If you're just moving from state to state to state to state to state, and your family, you got, one family member over here in this side of the country, another family member over there on that side of the country, you have another member in this state, you have another member in that state, and you're calling yourself a family. I mean, unless you're in the military, and, you're like, you're used to the lifestyle. Otherwise, like, states should kind of be like locked in. You know what I mean? Like, if you're a New Yorker, you're a New Yorker. If you're from Jersey, you're from Jersey. If you're from Florida, you're Floridian. You know what I mean? But nowadays you get people that are from like all these other states. Like, nobody is from the state that they're from, unless you're like part of the younger generation. And I don't know, in the history sense of it, if people are actually like, what does that mean to your family? What does that mean, to the history of your lineage? Like, are they even going to care? Because at this point, I think like most people, they're not even having children. You know what I mean? I was going to go into a little bit of a talk on like, okay, so what does all this stuff mean anyway at this point? Like, what's the point of it? As far as relationships, and then talking about the manosphere, talking about, all this stuff having to do with, feminism, and, what it's done to the culture, what it's done to the nation, what it's done to the country, what it's done to the world. Like, what is it, what's going to be its impact? Now, on the felt side of things, it's like looking in the mirror when you're 5 years old, and then looking in the mirror when you're 80 years old, and then saying like, can you recognize yourself from when you're 5 to when you're 80, and say that you knew that's how you were going to end up? And I think in most cases people are going to say no. People don't know how they're going to end up, when they're going through the course of their life, and they're trying to figure out on an individual basis, like, what's going to be the path that they take, and how's the life that they're going to live, and all that stuff. But okay, that might not be very well possible. However, from a societal sense, and then being able to say, communities, there's a better chance when you have communities and people that are like-minded and that understand how things work and how things get built up and how it passes on from one generation to the next, to say that there you have a better chance of understanding what lies in the future and what lies, for future generations. But all this individualism, the way that they went ahead and brought this individualism, into the mix, and again, I don't think people understand individualism. They do not understand it. They were never taught that term. They were never taught the term of individualism. They were never taught to understand what it means, how it works, its functionality, why prior to individualism, like, what was it that was going on? Now, some people at the time will say that, well, it was worse before individualism than it was after. Well, I guess that depends on, your family, your individual life, and then trying to understand, how do you navigate through the world that you're living in the economy that you're in. And that's hard to figure out, especially when you're younger, because nobody's telling you anything about anything at all. Most people raise their kids and they tell them, go do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. I mean, maybe they put some limitations on them. Maybe they say, stay away from this, don't do that. But for the most part, like, the way that the society has gone, from the 70s to the 80s, to the 90s, to the 2000s, to the teens, now in the 20s, and people are thinking that, like, you're going to tell your kids just go do whatever you want? Like, yeah, do whatever you want. Like, that's not going to fly, dude. That's not going to go anywhere far at all. And as an individual, like, all you're doing is, probably digging your own grave. And then going to be wondering to yourself, like, what was I even a part of? Like, what was I even involved in? So a lot of this stuff, I mean, if you're not thinking about it on some higher level, some level where you can understand either big picture vision or understand, how the mechanics of society work, the economics, estates, what does a state produce? What is a state built on? Like, how do you get a house? How do you get a house and then stay in that house long term? If all you're doing is thinking, well, I go from an apartment to a house, to a starter house, to then from a starter house, then I have to get into a bigger house. Because nowadays, like, people don't even, it's not even like you need a bigger house because you started a family. You know what I mean? Like, people will just go get a bigger house because they think it's like the smart thing to do. Because it's something that they can afford. And then they're like, wow, I'm going to get this big house that I'm just going to, I'm going to let it appreciate and build some equity off of it. And then I'm going to sell it. And then I'm going to have, money, which means, like, I'll have to work less. House flipping. It's a lot of it back in the day. It was all house flipping. And it's like, is that going to continue moving forward? Because so many people were doing that they were like, that's the easy money. That's the easy slide. Just go buy yourself a house, maybe fix it up if you have to, and then let the neighborhood, I guess the neighborhood gets better. Somehow they fix the neighborhood up. I don't know what they're doing to these neighborhoods that they think these neighborhoods are getting better. Because the only thing that happens to a neighborhood is usually it just builds up more traffic. And that's what people are usually trying to get away from. They don't want to go near traffic. You know what I mean? People aren't like, ooh, what's the place that has the most traffic? Because that's what I want to do. I want to go be around traffic. Chances are, if you're going to a place where there's traffic, there better be, subway systems and bus lines and train lines, and they better have public transportation that's readily available, that's safe, and not just, a 20-minute train ride or whatever, and you're going into a neighborhood that you're like, whoa, this is where this thing takes me? Because, like, that's not going to be good. So then the other alternative is that you're going to be driving a car. That's why cars became so like, oh, well, we have to make luxury cars now. Everyone's got to drive a luxury car. Because now it takes you 2 hours to go to work. So now you have to have, like, it's not a mobile home. You're not, you know what I mean? People can't afford a mobile home. But they try to make it seem like cars are that great. Like, they look so luxurious. I mean, prior to all these cars, the one thing was like having a cell phone. Right? So if you had a cell phone and you had a car, that's all you needed back then. Because you felt safe enough to say, well, if I had an emergency and I had to call for help, I have my cell phone. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Hello. Hey, I'm stuck out in the middle of so-and-so. I ran out of gas. Having car problems. Whatever the case. But prior to that, people, luxury, what was it? Power windows, power locks? That all of a sudden it was like if your car had power windows, power locks, now you were living the high life? So, I mean, times have changed, man. Times have changed. Lifestyles, and you could say consumerism. Everyone's starting now to say, oh, consumerism is bad. Consumerism is bad? No, people not being able to control themselves is bad. That's what's bad. You got to learn how to control yourself. And if you never learn how to control yourself, then being able to buy everything that you want, or having a job that you're able to say, well, my job, I have a job, I work for a living, I earn money, I have money in my pocket, I'm going to spend it. Well, what do you think all these, people have been doing for the past several decades? Acting like their money was like, not on a credit card. And then thinking that they've navigated this whole financial system that's led to this whole economic situation that hopefully doesn't collapse in the next few years into nothing. And then people have to, now what? Now you're going to survive? How are you going to survive? You're going to survive the times? You need every little nook and cranny, gadget, gizmo, every little Tinkler, Dinkler. Like, you're gonna need the Grinch, man. You're gonna need him to come and bring you presents, all your little gadgets and tinglers, because that's what the children expect. They're Von Woozlers and they're ding danglers and they're whatever else it is that Dr. Seuss used to make up that everybody needed in order to survive. And then what is it? What's going to happen? All these adults, they're going to start doing lectures. All these people that brought us to this point, they're going to start lecturing the children. What? The teachers, they're going to get their agendas. They're going to get their memos. That now they have to change their teaching patterns, and now to start telling all the future generations now, like, oh no, you need to learn how to sacrifice. You need to learn how to survive off of the meagerest possessions. You need to just survive on, a piece of bread a day. That's what you get. You got to understand that life isn't all glitz and glam and all this putting on the Ritz. So I don't know, man. I don't know. I think like this election year, 2024, people better figure it out, and they better figure it out quick, because this future is coming. The future's already here. Now it's just, sleeping in the bed that you made for yourself. And then the rest of us, if we got to sit there and say, well, we got to sleep around all of this now too, because of all these people, that's going to be real tough. That's going to be a real tough society. Anyway, that's all I got. I know that one was a little harsh. It was a little painful for some people to listen to. They probably said, man, I didn't want to hear that. That was too much. Or he's exactly right. Look at that, man. This guy called it. He's a prophet. He's a something. These are the... No, I don't know, dude. They've been saying this stuff for a long time. They've been saying this stuff for a long time. And nobody's been listening. Nobody has been listening. So I'll leave it at that. It's Friday. Get through it. Get through it. Work through it. Toughen it up. And you'll be fine. Go find someone that knows how to talk about real stuff and knows what's going on, because I'm telling you, those people are going to be hard to find. But those are going to be your gold nuggets. Those are going to be your people that you can go to, that you can listen to, that are going to give you some sense of, strength, some sense of intelligence, some sense of like well-being, and be like, all right, this guy might be trying to give me direction. Because like, look, when you're ready to have a master, that's when the master presents himself, right? Isn't that what they say? Right? Until then, you're just a student that's going around looking for something that you haven't found. So just, keep the chin up. Try to smile. It's Friday. Thank God it's Friday. And, look forward to the weekend. Hopefully you got the weekend and, that's something to look forward to. Otherwise, there's always, family, friends that are good people, hopefully, in your life. And that they're going to be able to give you some sense of, like, appreciation for what you got going on and why you do the things that you do. All right, that's all I got. Peace out. We'll talk to you soon.